My friends, every one of us is born with a story, but not everyone realizes that we also hold a pen to rewrite it. Life is not just what has happened to us, but what we choose to do with what has happened. Too many times we live on autopilot, repeating the same thoughts, the same patterns, and the same mistakes. But the truth is, every sunrise brings us an opportunity to wake up, not just from sleep, but from the illusions we've accepted as if this is just who I am. Think about it. If your past could define your future permanently, then no one would ever change. But we've seen people transform from failure to success, from brokenness to healing, from fear to courage. So why not you? Why not today? The day you decide to wake up and rewrite your story is the day your life takes a new direction. Awareness is the first step to rewriting your story. Because unless you truly wake up to where you are, you cannot move towards where you want to be. Imagine someone who is asleep and dreaming. In the dream, they might be running, working, or even fighting battles, but none of it is real. The moment they wake up, they realize it was just a dream. In the same way, many of us are walking through life without ever really waking up. We keep repeating routines, habits, and choices, thinking this is just the way life is. But have you ever asked yourself, who told you it has to be this way? Awareness means pausing long enough to observe your own life. It means asking yourself tough questions. Am I truly happy with the direction I am moving in? Are my daily actions aligned with the future I dream of? Or am I simply moving because the world told me this is the path? Without awareness, we become passengers in our own story, letting circumstances, opinions, and past experiences drive the vehicle of our life. But when awareness comes, you move from being a passenger to taking the steering wheel. Many people believe change begins with action, but the truth is, action without awareness often leads to repeating the same mistakes in different forms. For example, a person may feel stuck in an unhappy career. So they quit and take another job only to realize a year later they feel just as trapped. Why? Because the problem was not only the job, it was a lack of awareness about their true passion, their values, and what gives them meaning. Without awareness, you keep changing the outer circumstances while carrying the same inner patterns that hold you back. Awareness requires honesty, and honesty with ourselves can be uncomfortable. It means admitting that maybe we are not as disciplined as we thought. It means acknowledging that some of the pain we carry today is because of choices we made yesterday. It means realizing that blaming others has not moved us forward, and perhaps the real work begins within. Yet uncomfortable as it may be, this honesty is liberating. Because the moment you see clearly, you can no longer fool yourself into living the same way. Awareness cracks the shell of illusion and lets the light in. Think of a person holding a map. If they are unaware of where they are standing, even the best map will not help. But the moment they say, this is my current location, then the path ahead becomes clear. Awareness is that acknowledgement of your current location in life. It doesn't mean you're stuck there forever. It simply means you know where you are starting from. And once you know, you can choose where to go. Often we avoid awareness because it feels painful to look at what is broken. But ignoring reality doesn't change it. It only delays growth. The sooner you wake up, the sooner you can begin rewriting. Life is too short to live half asleep, waiting for some miracle to rewrite the chapters for you. The miracle is already within you, and it begins with one step. Open your eyes to the truth of your own life. That is why awareness is the foundation of all transformation. Without it, nothing changes. That everything can. Your past is not your permanent identity. Too often we allow what has happened yesterday to decide what we can or cannot become tomorrow. People say things like, I've always been like this, or this is just who I am, without realizing that these are only stories they have chosen to believe. The truth is, no mistake, no failure, no heartbreak has the authority to permanently define you, unless you keep giving it that power. Just because you fell once does not mean you cannot rise. Just because you made wrong choices does not mean you cannot make new ones. The past is only a place of reference, not a place of residence. Think of a child learning how to walk. The child falls again and again, sometimes painfully. But no one calls that child a failure. Why? Because we all know that falling is part of learning. So why, as adults, do we suddenly label ourselves failures when life makes us stumble? Falling is still part of learning, but many of us stop trying because we let the fall define us. The truth is, every person who has achieved greatness has a history of mistakes. The only difference is they refuse to let those mistakes become their permanent identity. Sometimes the voices around us reinforce the weight of our past. Someone might remind us of what we once did wrong. Someone might say, "But people like you never change." And after hearing it often, we begin to wear those words like a heavy coat that doesn't belong to us. But remember this, people can judge your past, but they cannot decide your future. That is only in your hands. Your past can describe what has happened, but it cannot dictate who you must remain. Even nature teaches us this lesson. A seed, when buried in the soil, looks nothing like the tree it is destined to become. If you judge the seed by its present appearance, you would never imagine the shade, the fruit, or the beauty it will one day provide. Similarly, your life today may still look like a seed, small, unnoticed, or even buried under difficulties. But it does not mean that this is all you will ever be. Growth takes time, but potential is always alive inside you. Sometimes we resist rewriting our story because we feel unworthy, ashamed, or too damaged to begin again. But have you noticed how the most beautiful art often comes from broken pieces? A potter takes clay and shapes it, even after it collapses. A painter turns mistakes on canvas into creative strokes. Life is no different. Your broken moments are not the end. They can be the beginning of a new masterpiece if you choose to see them that way. The real danger is not in making mistakes, but in believing the lie that you are your mistakes. Imagine carrying every wrong step on your back and trying to walk forward. You would collapse under the weight. The moment you realize your past is not your permanent identity, you drop the unnecessary baggage and move freely. You understand that the past is a chapter already written, but the book of your life still has blank pages waiting for your pen. So when you look at your past, see it as a teacher, not a prison. Learn from it, but don't let it trap you. Every sunrise is proof that life gives us another chance. You are not the person you were yesterday. You are the person you choose to become today. That choice is always yours, and it is far more powerful than anything in your past. Every story has pain, but pain is also power. There isn't a single person in this world who has walked through life without experiencing hurt, disappointment, or loss. Pain is universal. The only difference is how we choose to respond to it. Don't respond to it. Some allow pain to break them, while others use it as fuel to rise higher. The truth is, pain is not your enemy. It is your silent teacher shaping you into someone stronger, wiser, and more resilient than you ever imagined. When something painful happens, our first instinct is to ask, why me? We see our wounds as unfair punishments, as if life singled us out for suffering. But if we step back and look closely, we realize that the very experiences that hurt us often become the foundation of our greatest growth. Think about the strongest trees in the forest. They are not the ones that grew in perfect weather. They are the ones that survived storms, winds, and droughts. Their roots are deep because they had to endure. In the same way, our pain digs roots of strength and depth within us. Some of the most inspiring people in the world are not those who lived an easy life, but those who faced unimaginable difficulties and still chose to rise. Their power comes not from avoiding pain, but from transforming it. Pain has a way of introducing us to ourselves. It forces us to face questions we never asked before, to look at what truly matters, and to uncover hidden courage we didn't know we had. Without pain, many of us would remain comfortable, never realizing the strength sleeping inside us. Yet, the choice is always ours. Pain can be a prison or a passage. When we allow it to make us bitter, we get stuck replaying the same hurt over and over. But when we shift the question from why me to what can this teach me, the prison doors open. The pain doesn't disappear, but it transforms. It becomes power, a force that pushes us toward growth, compassion, and purpose. Think of a diamond. It begins as nothing more than carbon, ordinary and unremarkable. What makes it precious? The intense pressure it undergoes deep within the earth. Without pressure, there is no diamond. Without struggle, there is no strength. In the same way, our pain, though unwelcome, is shaping us into something rare and valuable. We don't see it in the moment, but with time, the beauty of transformation becomes clear. Many times, the very areas where we were once wounded become the areas where we later shine the brightest. The person who once felt broken in relationships becomes the one who teaches others about love and healing. The one who once failed in business becomes the mentor who guides others to succeed. The one who once battled illness becomes the voice of hope for others walking the same path. Pain connects us to humanity in a way comfort never can. It allows us to empathize, to relate, and to serve others with authenticity. Life will never promise us a path free of pain, but it does promise us that pain can be used. It is raw material. And what you build with it is up to you. You can let it define you as a victim, or you can let it refine you into a victor. That's the secret. Pain is not just an interruption in your story. It can be the turning point that gives your story true power. Gratitude turns your story into a blessing. Life is not defined only by what happens to us, but by how we choose to see what happens. Two people can experience the same situation, yet one sees it as a curse while the other sees it as a lesson. Gratitude is the lens that transforms the way we interpret our story. When you practice gratitude, even the ordinary moments become extraordinary, and even the painful chapters begin to carry hidden gifts. So often, our attention is captured by what we lack. We spend so much time thinking about what we don't have, what we haven't achieved, and what is missing, that we fail to see the beauty of what is already present. It's like staring at a glass of water and only noticing the empty half. The moment you shift focus to the water that is still there, you feel a sense of abundance. Gratitude doesn't magically fill the glass, but it changes the way you experience it. And when your perspective changes, your life changes. There are people in this world who seem to have little by worldly standards, yet they radiate joy. Their homes may be simple, their resources limited, but their hearts are full. And there are others who have everything, comfort, wealth, recognition, yet they feel empty and dissatisfied. What makes the difference? It isn't how much they possess, it's how much they appreciate. Gratitude has the power to turn little into enough and enough into abundance. Without it, even a life filled with riches feels poor. With it, even a simple life feels rich. Gratitude also has the power to heal. When you look back at your past, you may see moments of failure, heartbreak, or loss. At first, those memories bring pain. But when you revisit them with gratitude, something changes. You begin to notice how those moments shaped your character, how they taught you lessons, how they made you stronger. Gratitude doesn't erase the scars, but it changes the meaning of the scars. They are no longer just reminders of what hurt you. They become reminders of how far you have come. It's easy to feel thankful when everything is going well. The real test of gratitude is when life doesn't go according to plan. In those moments, gratitude is not about pretending everything is perfect. It is about finding the one thing, even in the middle of the storm, that you can still appreciate. It may be the support of a loved one, the strength to keep going, or even just the breath in your lungs. When you start with even the smallest gratitude, your heart opens, and suddenly you realize that even in difficulty, blessings exist. Gratitude also shifts the way we relate to others. When you're thankful, you stop taking people for granted. You begin to see the small gestures of kindness, the quiet sacrifices, the simple ways people add value to your life. Gratitude deepens relationships because it reminds us to acknowledge, to appreciate, and to express love while we still can. A word of thanks has the power to heal wounds, strengthen bonds, and bring light to someone else's story. When you live with gratitude, your entire narrative changes. The same events may still be there, but the way you carry them is different. Your life no longer feels like a burden you are dragging. It feels like a gift you are unwrapping. Gratitude doesn't change the external facts of your story. It changes your inner experience of them. And when your inner world is filled with appreciation, your outer life begins to reflect that joy. Gratitude turns your story into a blessing because it teaches you that every moment, every breath, every chapter, no matter how it reads, is worth cherishing. Forgiveness is rewriting without bitterness. One of the heaviest weights we carry in life is the burden of resentment. When someone hurts us, betrays us, or leaves us broken, we naturally hold on to that pain. We replay the event again and again as if rehearsing it will somehow undo the damage. But in truth, holding on does not heal us. It chains us to the very thing we want freedom from. Forgiveness is not about excusing the wrong or forgetting the wound. It is about choosing to no longer let bitterness poison your story. When we hold on to anger, we think we are punishing the one who hurt us. But in reality, we are punishing ourselves. Carrying resentment is like drinking poison and hoping the other person will fall sick. The bitterness settles in our heart, clouds our mind, and even affects our body. It robs us of peace, of joy, of the ability to truly move forward. Forgiveness, on the other hand, is an act of self-liberation. It doesn't say, oh, what happened was okay. It says, I refuse to let what happened control me anymore. Think about a book you are writing. If you spill ink on one page, it stains. But if you keep pressing that stain into the next pages, soon the entire story is ruined. Forgiveness is the decision to stop pressing the stain forward. Yes, the page is marked, but the rest of the story can still be beautiful. Refusing to forgive is like smudging every new chapter with the bitterness of the past. Choosing to forgive is giving yourself permission to start fresh. Forgiveness also means releasing yourself. Many times, the hardest person to forgive is not someone else, but ourselves. We look back at our mistakes, the choices we regret, and we carry guilt like a shadow that never leaves. We whisper to ourselves, I should have known better, or if only I had done things differently. But guilt without forgiveness is a prison with no key. Self-forgiveness is the courage to admit, yes, I fell, but I can rise. Yes, I failed, but I can learn. Just as we believe others deserve a second chance, we must remember that so do we. Forgiveness does not always mean reconciliation. Sometimes the wisest choice is to forgive in your heart, but keep a healthy distance. Forgiveness is not about going back to a toxic situation. It is about freeing your spirit so you are no longer bound by anger. It is about looking at the wound without letting it bleed into every area of your life. The past may have written pain into your story, but forgiveness allows you to pick up the pen again without the ink of bitterness. There are people who spend decades reliving the same pain because they cannot let go. Their story becomes centered around what someone else did to them, as if their identity is tied to that moment. But imagine what would happen if they chose to forgive. Suddenly, their life would no longer orbit around hurt. It would open to healing. Forgiveness does not erase the memory, but it changes the meaning of that memory. Instead of being a mark of weakness, it becomes evidence of strength. True forgiveness is not a single act, but a process. Some wounds take time to heal, and that's okay. The key is choosing every day to let go a little more. Choosing not to feed the anger, choosing not to replay the pain, choosing to open space for peace. Each small step in forgiveness is a step toward freedom. And as you release bitterness, you find that your story no longer tastes of resentment, but of renewal. Forgiveness is not about rewriting the past. It is about writing the future with a heart, unchained. Discipline is the author of transformation. Many people dream of a better life. They imagine success, peace, or growth. But they remain stuck because dreams without discipline stay as dreams. Discipline is the bridge that takes an idea from imagination into reality. It is not always glamorous, it is not always easy, but it is always necessary. The truth is, no great story is written without consistent effort, and discipline is the pen that writes the lines of change. We live in a world that often glorifies instant results. We want quick fixes, immediate rewards, overnight success. But life doesn't work that way. Anything meaningful takes time, and discipline is what allows us to endure that time. If you look at anyone who has achieved greatness, whether in art, sports, business, or personal growth, you will see that behind the scenes were countless hours of disciplined practice, repetition, and sacrifice. Talent may open the first door, but discipline is what keeps you walking the path until you reach your destination. Discipline is not about punishment, it is about alignment. It is the decision to align your daily actions with your long-term vision. For example, if someone wants to be healthy, discipline means choosing nourishing food when temptation calls for junk, or waking up for a walk when the bed feels too comfortable. These choices seem small in the moment, but over time they create transformation. The person who disciplines themselves today writes a story of strength tomorrow. The beautiful thing about discipline is that it builds character along the way. Every time you say no to distraction and yes to your goal, you train your mind to become stronger. It is like exercising a muscle. The more you practice discipline, the more natural it becomes. At first, it feels difficult, even painful. But slowly, what once felt impossible begins to feel normal. And one day, you realize the habits you once struggled to build have become a natural part of your life. Many people wait for motivation to arrive before they act. But motivation is like the wind. It comes and goes, sometimes strong, sometimes weak. Discipline is like the sail. It holds steady even when the wind disappears. If you rely only on motivation, your progress will always be inconsistent. But when you rely on discipline, you keep moving even on days when you don't feel like it. Feel like it. Act it. And those days are what truly shape you. Transformation is not born in moments of excitement, but in moments of persistence. Discipline also teaches us respect for time. We all have the same 24 hours in a day, but how we use them determines the direction of our lives. Without discipline, hours slip away in distractions, leaving us with regret. With discipline, every moment becomes an investment in the future we desire. Discipline doesn't steal your freedom, it creates it. Because the more you control your actions, the less your circumstances control you. Surround yourself with people who uplift you. Because the company you keep has the power to shape the story you live, human beings are deeply influenced by their environment, often more than we realize. The attitudes, beliefs, and habits of those around us slowly become part of our own lives. If you walk with those who constantly complain, you will soon find yourself complaining. If you spend time with those who strive for growth, you will naturally be inspired to grow. The people closest to you act like mirrors, reflecting back who you are and who you can become. Every chapter of your story will involve characters, and the roles they play can either lift you up or pull you down. Some people enter your life to encourage, guide, and believe in you even when you don't believe in yourself. Others drain your energy, criticize your dreams, and make you doubt your worth. It is not about judging anyone as good or bad, but about recognizing what energy they bring into your life. If you want to rewrite your story into one of strength and transformation, you must be intentional about choosing characters who will walk with you on that journey. Think about the difference between a garden filled with healthy flowers and one overrun with weeds. Both began with seeds, but the garden that thrives is the one where care is given, where weeds are removed, and where nourishment is provided. In the same way, the relationships you allow into your life are like seeds. Some relationships nourish your spirit, while others act like weeds, draining your energy and suffocating your potential. If you are serious about growth, you must nurture the relationships that bring light and gently distance yourself from those that bring darkness. Surrounding yourself with uplifting people also means being around those who challenge you to become better. True friends are not those who simply agree with everything you do, but those who remind you of your values when you forget them. They call out your potential when you settle for less. They hold you accountable not to shame you, but to remind you of the greatness you are capable of. In their presence, you feel inspired to rise higher, not pressured to shrink smaller. But this principle is not only about what you receive, it is also about what you give. To attract uplifting people, you must also strive to be uplifting yourself. Be the kind of person who encourages, who listens, who celebrates others' success instead of envying it. Life becomes richer when you surround yourself with people who support one another's journeys instead of competing against them. Together you grow faster, dream bigger, and overcome obstacles with greater strength. It is often said that you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. If that is true, then look closely at your circle. Do they reflect the kind of life you want to create? Do they push you to rise, or do they anchor you in place? Your circle is not just part of your story. It shapes the direction of your story. And sometimes the boldest act of rewriting is simply choosing better company, because the voices you hear most often will eventually become your own. The people you walk with matter, because life is not a solo journey. Every great story is filled with mentors, allies, and companions who make the journey meaningful. If you want to write a story of growth, courage, and fulfillment, then surround yourself with those who lift you higher. Their belief in you will strengthen your own, their energy will fuel your persistence, and their presence will remind you that you never walk alone. Faith gives courage to face blank pages. One of the most intimidating moments in life is standing before the unknown, staring at a chapter yet to be written. The blank page represents uncertainty. It is empty, vast, and waiting. Many people freeze at this point, paralyzed by questions. What if I fail? What if I'm not good enough? What if the future doesn't unfold the way I hope? Fear of the blank page keeps countless people stuck in old chapters, repeating stories they no longer want to live. But faith is the force that pushes you forward, reminding you that though the page is empty, it carries the possibility of something beautiful. Faith does not mean you have all the answers. It means you trust that answers will unfold as you move. Think of a traveler walking down a path at night with only a small lantern. The lantern does not light up the entire road, but it gives just enough light to take the next step. And with each step, more of the path is revealed. That is how faith works. That is how faith works. It does not eliminate uncertainty, but it gives you the courage to take the next step even when you cannot see the whole journey. The blank page can feel frightening because it forces us to let go of control. We like security. We like knowing exactly how things will turn out. But growth requires stepping into spaces we have never been before. A new career, a new relationship, a new city, or even a new mindset. All of these begin with blank pages. Faith whispers, it's okay not to know everything right now. Just begin. Without faith, the page remains empty, untouched. With faith, words begin to form, and slowly, a new story is written. Faith is not only about believing in yourself. It is also about believing in something greater than yourself. Whether you call it destiny, purpose, or a higher power, faith connects you to the idea that life is not random. There is meaning, even in the unknown. And when you trust that life holds something for you beyond what you currently see, the blank page becomes less frightening and more exciting. It becomes an invitation to co-create with life, rather than a threat of failure. Many of the greatest breakthroughs in history happened because someone had faith to face the blank page. The scientist who dared to experiment, the artist who began with an empty canvas, the writer who stared at an empty sheet of paper, the dreamer who started a journey no one believed in. All of them had faith. They stepped into uncertainty with trust that something valuable would emerge. Without that leap, nothing new is ever born. But faith also requires patience. Blank pages don't fill themselves in an instant. Sometimes you write a line and erase it. Sometimes you take steps that don't seem to lead anywhere. Yet faith reminds you that even missteps are part of the process. A blank page does not need to be filled perfectly. It simply needs to be filled honestly. Your courage to keep writing, to keep moving is what creates progress. The truth is, the future will always be unknown. None of us can predict exactly what the next chapter will look like. But with faith, you no longer fear the unknown. You embrace it. The blank page transforms from an enemy into a canvas. It becomes a space of potential, a stage for possibilities, a doorway into growth. When you hold faith in your heart, you realize that you don't need to have the entire story figured out. You only need the courage to begin writing the next line. Service adds meaning to your story. No matter how much we achieve, accumulate, or celebrate in life, if it is only for ourselves, it eventually feels empty. There comes a point where success without service feels shallow, like a beautiful book with no message. True fulfillment does not come from what we keep, but from what we give. Service transforms life from being about personal gain to being about shared growth. And in doing so, it adds depth, purpose, and meaning to the chapters we write. Think about some of the most admired figures in history. They are remembered not because of what they owned, but because of what they gave. Whether it was wisdom, love, sacrifice, or guidance, their legacy was built on service. Service has the power to turn ordinary lives into extraordinary stories. A teacher shaping young minds, a doctor healing the sick, a neighbor lending a hand, or even a stranger offering kindness. These are acts that may seem small, but they ripple far beyond the moment. When we serve others, we discover a joy that is different from any personal achievement. Achievements bring satisfaction, but service brings fulfillment. You can celebrate a personal victory, but when your actions touch someone else's life, the joy multiplies. It becomes a shared celebration, one that connects hearts and uplifts spirits. Service teaches us that the greatest wealth is not measured by what we keep, but by the smiles we create, the burdens we ease, and the hope we spark in others. Serving does not always mean grand gestures. Sometimes it is simply listening when someone needs to be heard, offering encouragement when someone feels low, or sharing knowledge that can help someone move forward. These acts may not appear in history books, but they shape the personal histories of those we touch. The beauty of service is that it is available to everyone. You don't need to be rich, powerful, or famous to serve. You simply need a heart willing to give. Ironically, when we serve, we also grow. Service stretches us beyond our comfort zone and teaches us compassion. It helps us see life from perspectives we might never have considered. When you help someone struggling, you become more grateful for your own blessings. When you lift someone else, you realize the strength you carry within yourself. Service is a cycle. As you give, you receive, not always in material form, but in wisdom, peace, and fulfillment. The meaning of our story is not just in what we achieve, but in how our life impacts others. Imagine a book that speaks only about one character, their needs, their desires, their struggles, with no connection to anyone else. It would feel incomplete. Our lives are the same. Service connects our story to the greater story of humanity. It turns self-centered chapters into shared narratives that inspire, comfort, and strengthen others. There are people who search endlessly for their purpose, wondering what their life is meant for. The truth is, service is often the key. When you focus on helping others, purpose begins to reveal itself naturally. You may discover that your talent for teaching, your ability to encourage, or even your capacity to endure hardships can become a source of hope for others. In giving, you find who you really are. And so, if you want your story to carry meaning, let service be one of its strongest themes. You may not control how long your story will be, but you can always choose how meaningful it will be. The chapters written with service will outlast you, echoing in the lives of those you touched. That is how a life becomes more than just lived. It becomes remembered, honored, and cherished. The pen is in your hands right now. Too many people live as if life is something happening to them rather than something unfolding through them. They wait for circumstances to change, for someone to rescue them, or for luck to suddenly turn in their favor. They forget that every day, with every choice, they are already writing their story. The pen has never left their hand. It is simply that they have not noticed. Recognizing this truth is powerful because it means that no matter what yesterday looked like, today is an opportunity to begin again. When you hold a pen over a blank page, you decide what comes next. You can write about loss, or you can write about lessons. You can dwell on regrets, or you can craft new dreams. The page doesn't care what you write. It will faithfully carry your words. Life is the same. It reflects back what you choose to put into it. Every thought, every word, every action is ink. Whether that ink creates a tragedy or a triumph is determined by how you use it. Often people underestimate the small choices. They think only grand moments define their lives. But in truth, it is the daily decisions that shape the story. The choice to get up early and work on your goals, the choice to forgive instead of resent, the choice to speak kindly instead of harshly. These little lines fill the pages, and over time, they create chapters that reveal who you are becoming. The pen is not just for big moments, it writes every moment. Holding the pen also means accepting responsibility. It is tempting to hand the pen to others, to let society, family, or past mistakes dictate the narrative. But when others write your story, you live a script that doesn't belong to you. You may gain approval, but you lose authenticity. Taking back the pen means saying, "This is my life. I may listen to advice, I may learn from others, but ultimately I will choose what goes on these pages." Responsibility can feel heavy, but it is also liberating because it reminds you that your future is not locked, it is open. The pen in your hand is not meant to create perfection. It is meant to create progress. You may write lines you regret, you may scribble, you may even have to cross out entire pages. That is okay. Every great story has twists, mistakes, and revision. What matters is not that the writing is flawless, but that it is honest and that it continues. Too many people stop writing because they fear imperfection. But the only failed story is the one left unwritten. There is also urgency in this truth. The pen is in your hands right now. Not tomorrow, not someday when you feel ready, but this very moment. Every day you wait is another blank page left untouched. You cannot go back and rewrite the beginning, but you can start writing a better ending. Waiting for the perfect time is an illusion because the perfect time never arrives. The only time you truly have is now. Imagine years from today, looking back at the story you created. Will it be one of hesitation, fear, and missed chances? Or will it be one of courage, love, growth, and meaning? The answer lies in what you choose to write with a pen in your hand today. This is your story, and no one else can live it for you. The pen is yours. Use it to write something worth remembering.